Okay, thanks everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Leaders Portfolio. We will start with item 1, which is the monitoring of executive member cabinet decisions. That has been enclosed. Any items to raise there?
Leader, can I just go through the ones that can come off now because they've been completed?
Of course you can. Yeah.
So the policy updates on the disposal of confidential waste and data breach management policies have now been uploaded to the intranet. The retender for our online disclosure and barring services has been awarded and is now complete. The leave policy has been approved and implemented, and the financial final outturn has been completed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for that. So we'll move on to item 2, which is the permission to retender for occupational health provision. So who's taking us through this item?
That's me, Leader.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. This report sets out the proposal to continue with the Greater Manchester collaboration arrangement for our provision of occupational health services, which has been the arrangement in place since 2016. The current contract ends in April 24, and it's a key element to our staff wellbeing and attendance offer. The services are nurse appointments, doctor appointments, so giving medical advice and facilitating returns to work, advising on reasonable adjustments under the Equalities Act, completing our pre-employment processes for new starters to the organisation, and also completing the medical advisory side of the ill health retirement process. So there are 9 councils on the Greater Manchester collaboration for this contract, and it enables us to achieve significant economies of scale. We provide, in terms of scope, we provide services to over 80 of the council schools and a couple of other customer organisations, including the college and Bolton Cares. That makes us a small amount of income which covers the staffing costs to administer the contract at the council. So the recommendation from the report would be that we continue with the Greater Manchester arrangement, which is managed by Oldham, and award delegated powers to the Director of Corporate Resources to award the contract once a collaborative decision is made. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jane. Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Nick. I mean, in principle, this is a no-brainer. It makes absolute sense to do it. I've just got one question. For a long while, we've been trying to change our arrangements for dealing with long-term sickness and frequent sickness. And no doubt that will come up again. Does the contract we're looking at enable us to do that easily? And if so, would there be an extra cost?
Thank you. Yeah, it absolutely is crucial to the management of long-term sick cases, and we're currently starting work to review our absence or attendance policy, as we're trying to focus on, and the triggers within the attendance policy kind of trigger an occupational health referral, and that's the case now and would be likely to be the case in future. So you almost pay as you go depending on what appointments you used in the occupational health service. But any when we're doing the tender for the contract, we share our sickness information, and we ask that providers work closely with us and look at our sickness issues in order to get best value for money from the contract.
Thanks for the question, councillors. Any further questions? I've obviously been fully briefed on this, and I agree with councillors. It's obviously a no-brainer. It's a very good example of collaborative working with other authorities for efficiencies. So that's a very good report. Thank you very much for that, Jane. We'll move on to find my agenda. Item 3, which is the retender for learning management system.
Thank you. That's me again, Chair. This report sets out a further proposal to continue with the Greater Manchester arrangement, but this time for our online training or e-learning, or it calls it a learning management system. And we have 10 councils on this contract, again managed by Oldham, and able to achieve, again, significant economies of scale by joining together. This arrangement was launched in 2015 for the children's and adult staff, and then in 2019 we rolled it out to all staff in the authority, and we also sell licences to schools and care organisations. It was really timely because it was in place just before the pandemic, and it enabled lots of courses. We have 170 courses on the platform now, and the beauty of it is that staff can access it from the phone, from the home computer, as well as when they're at work. And we've added other courses on there as needs have arisen, such as digital courses. We've got equality, diversity and inclusion courses, health and safety, a real broad range of provision. The social value element of the contract is great because it allows us some free licenses, which we pass on to our community champions, work experience students, and most recently T-level placements. And it really complements our face-to-face training offer with a wide range of online learning. We have over 5,000 licenses at the minute, and the surplus that we achieve from selling the licenses covers the costs. So the recommendation again would be to continue with the Greater Manchester arrangement managed by Oldham, and to delegate powers to the Director of Corporate Resources when a collaborative decision is made to award the contract. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members? Okay, I think it's very similar to the first item, and I think it's worth saying as well for people who might be watching the recording back that this is a public decision-making meeting, but I, as the decision maker, have been briefed on all these items. Hence, that's why I'm not asking probing questions about each thing. So thanks again, Jane.
Thank you.
Move on to item 4. This is the provision of a CT scanning post-mortem and wraparound service to HM Coroner, Manchester West. And we have with us, presenting the item.
Leader, it's Chris Walker.
It's Chris.
Leader, there's two of us, in fact. There's the senior officer, Mr. Walker, myself, senior coroner. Can I just introduce the matter by giving you some strategic overview to try and assist and field any probing questions in relation to any matter of strategy? And Chris Walker has the technical detail. By way of background, in December last year, I received a distressing telephone call from the senior lead pathologist at Salford Royal, explaining that because of a crisis in his personnel, he was not in a position to process post-mortems without him activating his continuation management process. That of itself was in crisis because of a lack of qualified and available pathologists. This mirrors the position both in Bolton and Wigan, the two other hospitals that provide post-mortem coverage for the jurisdiction. We've now come to the view that the entire system is at its operating ceiling. There is an absence of resilience. There are simply no new consultant histopathologists who are being recruited for a variety of reasons. And it means that my own continuation management planning, in the event of there being no specific individual available, means that we will be engaged in body removal to other hospitals, both within the jurisdiction and off the jurisdiction, which is going to prove to be a very expensive item for us to have to deal with, especially if we're to receive an excess death hike similar to the one that we experienced last autumn and winter. And therefore, I applied some thought as to looking very carefully at what the jurisdiction might wish to consider as part of my responsibilities. And it's clear to me that part of the reason why there is a recruitment problem is that consultant histopathologists see the future in the provision of a cause of death being given by imagery provided by CT scanning. And because this is perceived to be the future, nobody is wishing to enter the profession, and that has created a nationwide shortage of pathologists who are in a position to perform invasive postmortems. Before we move into a further series of crises, which has profound financial repercussions for the local authority, I gave this a very deep dive thinking about what options were available. And it seems to me that looking at what is the experience elsewhere, I've consulted with my counterparts, again, nationally, and each of the coroners that I have spoken to have agreed that the future is in non-invasive CT postmortems. We have done a lot of due diligence looking at the efficacy of this, and I've consulted in particular making use of the expertise at Bolton Royal and Dr. Patrick Waugh, who is my lead pathologist at Bolton. He went on my behalf to look at what in fact happens in Sheffield and agreed that this, in terms of the technology, is indeed the way forward. The CT scan is in a position to give me a cause of death in 68% of cases. If the radiologist then makes use of an angiogram, that figure moves to 98%. So, sorry, 92%, so that in 92% of cases, the CT scan should provide a positive cause of death. There will still therefore be the need for there to be, in that small percentage of cases, the technology is such, and the view that Dr. Waugh has is that he would be more comfortable if in fact either fully invasive or partially invasive postmortems take place in between 15 to 25% of cases, is his provisional view. And therefore, it's clear to me that we're going to have to work very closely with existing consultant histopathologists, the potential providers of the CT process. There are a number of blueprints for us to follow. This is a system that's been rolled out and has been applied and is working very well in Lancashire and has been for the past 5 years. In terms of other jurisdictions, I can tell you that Sheffield, Doncaster and Kent are other local authorities who have decided to adopt this strategic change to the provision of how we obtain cause of death reports. I've undertaken a pilot in relation to a problem that we had at Wigan 2 or 3 months ago, when again, by reason of an emergency, my reliable pathologist there had to turn to India for a period of 2 weeks on family business. I sent a number of bodies to Preston to see just how in fact the system works, and we have been incredibly impressed by the quality of reports that we're receiving and the service potential that is going to be offered. That this has a variety of advantages, because it means that there are a number of faith groups within the jurisdiction who would prefer us to undertake non-invasive postmortems, and this will be a huge bonus for these communities if this is the preferred way that we provide a cause of death report. I've also been made aware from the trusts, because if I don't go down this particular route asking for a postmortem, the only alternative I have is to ask clinicians who might have treated in life to provide me a written cause of death report. Because of the operational tensions within the National Health Service, actually asking a consultant or a registrar to take 3 or 4 hours out of their busy days to put pen to paper, and then to back that up by coming to court and assisting me at an inquest, means that the trust themselves see this as an extremely important initiative that would ease operational tension so far as they are concerned. So at every angle that I'm looking at this innovation from, there seems to be a number of direct benefits. The key benefits to me are that the bereaved have a sense that the body is yielding its cause of death without the trauma of them contemplating an invasive post-mortem. The process is quicker, it's more efficient, and in many cases it is more definitive than tissue dissection in some categories of case. So we really are looking at what, for me, from my standpoint as the coroner, is a decision that I'd very much like you to consider for all the reasons that are set out in Helen Gorman's report. That's the strategic overview. Chris, I don't know if there's anything technically you want to add to that overview.
Yeah, it's just that the main issue is the lack of pathologists. They're constantly complaining that they've got an increased NHS workload. A number of pathologists are looking to retire imminently, as far as I'm aware. The workforce hasn't increased with the demand of the work, and the pathologists are concerned about the time it takes them to conduct the actual physical post-mortem examination and then attend a subsequent inquest, and it's just taking them away from being able to commit to their NHS commitments. And so really I cannot see any other alternative than what we're proposing with the looking at a CT PM scanning service.
Thanks very much, Chris and Timothy. I mean, it seems to me that there's potentially two drivers for this innovation. One is what you have just described about the workload and the fact that people are dropping out of the profession, but the other driver is the fact that technology is advancing so fast. I'm sure at some point in time, I'm not sure how far back, this would have been unpalatable because it wouldn't have been as reliable, but technology has moved on so much that, as you say, in 60, I think you said, Timothy, 68% of cases, and then it goes to 92% with the additional technology. I've got two people who are indicating to ask questions or make comments, so I'll take Councillor Mudassar first.
Thanks, Leader. Very interesting presentation. I think the key to this is 92%, which is quite a high number, and definitely it is the way forward. I think one of the key things that Timothy mentioned was the fact that there are certain faith communities and communities within our area that would really appreciate this type of technology moving forward, because it is a tough decision. When you have to ask for, it's a sensitive situation when somebody passes away anyway, but it's sort of it's a bigger deal when you have to carry out other actions. So 92% I think is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure in the future it'll only improve from that. So I'm really positive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dean. Councillor David Grant.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the presentation there, Mr. Brennan. I've got two questions, if I may. The first one, perhaps Mr. Brennan could answer for me. If the CT scanning goes ahead and the family members aren't particularly happy with the result, or can they still request an invasive procedure?
Yes, they can. The position is that we always offer to the family an opportunity for a nominee to be present at a post-mortem. We understand that sometimes the issue of cause of death can be a very sensitive and potentially something that might be the subject of challenge. And therefore, the position is that I will always receive representations from any potential interested person. This happens already. The police sometimes request of me to consider a forensic Home Office post-mortem, and I then take into consideration other people's representations as to whether that enhanced form of invasive post-mortem. I receive requests already from members of a number of faith groups for me to consider a non-invasive post-mortem. However, the faith group has to bear the cost of that, which they're prepared to do. So the Jewish Burial Society and in Bolton, we are very fortunate to have a very close working relationship with the Bolton Council of Mosques, and we work very closely with BCOM so that we can identify the right type of post-mortem, bearing in mind all representations. So this is a collaborative process. This simply is shifting the balance away from invasive postmortems to being the norm, whereby we have a non-invasive postmortem. There'll still be discussions in a case, even in a faith case, where the CT scan in those rare and exceptional cases doesn't yield a cause of death, and then we'll have to go back to an invasive postmortem. However, we're looking to approach matters so that we can configure a contract which is going to be currently cost neutral, because what we're asking the provider to do is not hit the local authority with the double whammy of having to pay for the cost of a CT scan and then also to pay the cost of an invasive. We feel that as part of the procurement journey, we can configure the contract in a way that means that what the provider has to give to us is a cause of death by whichever route, and it's a single cost, irrespective of whether it's CT or CT and invasive. So that's the approach that we're taking. I've wanted to make sure that this is driven by what I consider to be the most clinically efficacious way of getting to a cause of death, which is why I wanted to make sure that my best pathologist thoroughly approved of the technology. And that's all been part of my background due diligence to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in danger of an inferior form of obtaining a cause of death. And I've been given very clear reassurances that the technology really is impressive. And Dr. Waugh, who was a cynic to the value of CT scans, has been completely won over by the technology, which I think was very interesting.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I've just got one quick one now for our financial gurus, if I may, Leader. Reading through, it wasn't really touched on, but reading through the documents, this is going to be, again, collaboratively shared, the cost of this with, I believe, Manchester West. Is that correct?
It's Bolton, Wigan and Salford.
Right. Proportionality, now this is obviously comes down to cost and the cost, but are we paying effectively 33.3% of this, or is it proportionality to the number of cases we put forward?
It's proportional to the number of cases. The breakdown and the split means that Wigan is the largest contributor, because that's the largest area in terms of that which we use. I think they're at about 36% or so. Within the report, the actual breakdown stats are there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, David. Councillor Paul Heslop.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, David. Councillor Grant. They were partly my questions. Just quickly, are we making full use of this apparatus? Is it going to be not lying idle when it could be used for other things, or could be used, could be potentially outsourced? That's one concern. What is the actual cost of it, of the apparatus? Those two questions.
Yeah, to buy a CT machine costs £1 million. That's how much the cost is. Sometimes it's possible in some jurisdictions where the numbers are much less than our numbers to make use of an NHS CT machine out of hours, but that involves body removal and also the attendant costs, which means that the machines themselves, even the NHS use CT machines 24/7. If you go to hospital in an emergency situation in Salford and you require a CT scan on your head, then that can be done at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it therefore is the experience of other jurisdictions. They're not having primacy over the machine, means that sometimes, especially in a busy NHS area, there can be considerable delay. And so given the numbers that we're dealing with potentially 1,700 postmortems annually. That is going to keep the machine extraordinarily busy. If we are lucky and fortunate, and if we follow the Sheffield model, then it becomes entirely possible for this to generate revenue for the local authority, because Sheffield stole a march there. They have other neighbouring areas coming to them, generating for the local authority an actual income. And that's why I'm very keen to be at the forefront of this initiative, because I can't guarantee it, because these are matters beyond my control. But what I can indicate to you is that what I hope is that wherever the machine is sited, it will put Manchester West really at the forefront of this initiative. And I would confidently predict, having discussed matters with my neighbouring senior coroners, that the facility will be well used.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's quite a large number of cases per annum, as you outlined, but I think what you're suggesting is, as we have stolen a march on other areas, if there is capacity, that spare capacity can be in effect used by others, and that would generate income.
Yes. What I've been told is the maximal amount of bodies that can be processed is 2,600 annually. We will be offering 1,700, so there is certainly going to be capacity there. But in terms of the procurement requirements, what I've made very clear is that I want to approach this on the basis of cost neutrality. The actual specifics are that the cost currently, a pathologist charges £270. There are then body storage and body removal costs, which means that the actual cause of death process on a unit basis comes to about, on average, £550.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayes. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just a quickie really on the income. Presumably that will be shared as well. It wouldn't be income just to Bolton. It would be to the three authorities, presumably. Yeah,
this would be a procurement on the basis of the jurisdiction as a whole, and then it would be a matter for the lead local authority, which is Bolton, to decide how and in what way those monies are applied either to the provision of coronial services, but I'm hoping that that will have a positive impact on the actual budget. But of course, it's not a matter for me. It's ultimately a matter for Helen Gorman as to if there is, in the happy event of there being revenue generating possibilities, what happens with that money.
Okay, thank you everybody for their contributions. That's it's an absolutely fascinating report, and I certainly look forward to updates at some stage in the future as to how this new system is operating. So thanks very much, Tim and Chris. We'll move on to the next item, which is the Oracle support contract. I presume is that John?
It is, Leader. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
This report sets out a proposal to continue with our current Oracle support partner by direct awarding a one-year contract to Mastech. Just as a bit of background, Oracle was implemented in 2003 and is one of the Council's key strategic systems, providing financial management, HR, procurement and payroll services to both council and schools. In 2018-19, we chose to upgrade to Oracle Fusion, with Mastech appointed on a 4-year deal to support and manage that implementation of the new platform. We have an internal Oracle support team which deals with frontline queries and training, whereas the partner provides us with second and third line support for technical issues, and with our Oracle partner for assistance with escalations. The contract that we have also covers application enhancements and security patching, which is obviously key to keeping us secure. The report offers several options. One option was to enter into a 3-year contract. This has been considered and discounted due to upcoming service reviews and investigations into whether there are other low-code solutions that could help us achieve our goals alongside Oracle. There was an option not to proceed with third-party support, but given the key functions that Oracle delivers for us, this would be an incredible risk to business continuity. Our internal support team, though fantastic, deal with frontline support calls and training. They cannot support us from a more technical point of view in terms of a brand new platform. So if we have any infrastructure issues with the Oracle platform, we need to use a partner for those calls. The recommendation in the report is to direct award a one-year contract to Mastech, allowing us to continue with work that is ongoing. We are implementing a new absence reporting methodology, which Mastech have already been working on during the current contract. As I've said, we are undergoing some service reviews of the system, one which is being led by Oracle, and Mastech are also offering us a separate review. This will help us understand how we're using the system and identify any gaps that we can improve on. The finding of these reviews will help us understand our requirements for 24-25. The understanding Mastech have of our way of working and also being our key implementation partner is invaluable at the moment. Any alternative providers just wouldn't get that opportunity to get up to speed to help us deliver some of the key projects that we're looking at doing. I hope that helps as an overview. I'm happy to field any questions.
Thanks, John. Can you just outline, I have seen it in the report, but can you just outline the reason why a longer term contract has at this point been discounted?
Currently, we've got 2 or 3 different pieces of work that are ongoing. The absence reporting is the major piece of work, and that's estimated to take us around 4 or 5 months to get that implemented. But rather than look at a 3-year contract with the current supplier, what we're looking to do is we're looking at investigating other systems alongside Oracle to try and help us achieve some of those goals. We're looking at a massive self-service review. So rather than looking at the 3-year contract, we think the service reviews that Oracle are going to undertake will give us a lot of information on what we're missing. And I think what we'll be able to do is that'll give us a lot more confidence going forward with a requirement for years 2 to 3. So rather than commit to a 3-year now when we're just about to undergo a service review, I think once those reviews are taken, we'll be in a much better position going forwards to then maybe award a 3-year after that.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be revisiting. Any questions or comments from members? No, that seems quite straightforward. Thank you very much for that, John.
No problem.
Before the next 2 items are confidential items, so the recording of this meeting will end at that point. Before we do that, I'm just going to ask our committee clerk, Vicky Ridge, to explain why this happens for the benefit of anybody who's watched the live recording.
Thank you, Leader. So the meeting will now stop recording. The 2 items we've got are confidential in terms of what's contained within the report. Item 6 on the removal of bodies for HM Coroner is confidential because it has information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority. And item 7, which is a review of the digital customer service, is confidential because it has information there relating to any individual. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So we can